Namaste and welcome to Journey of Enlightenment. I am your host, Dr. Gopaul. Have you ever been in a situation where someone expected something of you, but you had no idea what that expectation was because they just never said? It was just a personal expectation that they might have. For example, have you ever been in a situation where someone said to you, I expected you to be there because you knew that I was depressed, but yet you had no idea that the person was sad because they said nothing? Have you ever been in a situation where you expected something of someone but never told them what your expectations were, and then was upset if they did not deliver as expected? This is something that we call the personal law of expectation. Today's topic will deal with this personal law of expectation. We will explore what it is and how it applies to our lives, and also to the disastrous effects it may cause in our social relations if we continue in our rigid forms of personal laws of expectation. When we reflect on the story of Ramayana, we recall where Kaikeyi was influenced by her maid. That influence was to dethrone Shri Ram from being installed as Prince Regent. Now, this was a plan that was concocted in the mind of Kaikeyi, the queen, the wife of King Dashrath. The kingdom of Ayodhya was preparing to celebrate the installation of Shri Ram as Prince Regent. All the people of the kingdom were in jubilation. There was joy all around. The palace was getting ready, preparing itself for this auspicious moment when Shri Ram would be crowned as the Prince Regent. The Prince Regent is the heir to the throne. He would be the one that will rule, that will take over the monarchy after the passing of King Dashrath. Shri Ram was the rightful heir to the throne, and as a result, he was loved by everyone. He was the person, the epitome of the solar race to one day rule Ayodhya. In the mind of Kaikeyi, she had a very different expectation. She wanted her own son Bharat to rule as king. Bharat should be the one in her mind to sit as Prince Regent. So Kaikeyi approached the king, who so happened to be a very wise king, a noble king, an honest king. This was King Dashrath. Kaikeyi knew this about her husband. She knew the kind of qualities that he carried, and she was prepared to use it against him. She was promised by King Dashrath some boons, meaning that he will honor, he will gift her with certain things that she asked. He went into her palace room and he saw her in a state of utter distress. He asked Queen Kaikeyi what was wrong. The Ramai said in the most loving manner, he was a personification of love itself. With gentle tones, he tried finding out what was wrong with the queen. In her mind, she was already plotting. She had in her mind a personal law of expectation. Her expectation was to remove Shri Ram from being crowned as Prince Regent and instead give that position to Bharat. She reminded the king. She said that you have made promises, but yet you never fulfill any. The king told her, he said, you name what it is that you wish, and I will surely grant it to you. Queen Kaikeyi then told the king that Shri Ram must be removed from the throne. He must not be crowned as Prince Regent. Instead, that position must be given to Bharat. And Shri Ram must leave Ayodhya and go into exile. The king was distraught at such a recommendation. He begged for her to reconsider her position, but Queen Kaikeyi would have none of it. Using manipulative tactics in getting her way, a personal law of expectation, she told the king, she said, if you do not honor my wishes, then you, O king, will live in utter shame in your kingdom. For you will now be known as the king who did not fulfill his promises, but also you will be the king whose wife, the queen, committed suicide as a result of you not fulfilling what you had promised. The king was in mental anguish. What should he do? When we consider this law of expectation, it is not based on the rules or the expectations of society as a whole in terms of courtesy or love or kindness or care. No. The personal rules of expectation isn't even based upon the laws of the land that we must obey, such as traffic rules or theft. The personal laws of expectation is simply laws that we create in our minds and then try to impose those laws on someone else. Our own personal expectation, that is, and forcing someone to abide by what we think they should do. There is an example where a husband and wife, they were married for a few years, and the wife complained that the husband did nothing at home. She complained that he never helped with the dishes, he never helped washing, he never helped with cleaning the house, he never helped with the children's homework, he never helped with picking up the kids from school. And she complained and complained about all that the husband did not do, all that she expected of a man, a husband, a father. He failed. Of course, in such a situation, no marriage could be on sturdy ground. That marriage was sailing on very rough waters at that stage. No one could survive an unhealthy relationship. An unhealthy relationship could bring much distress to both parties. The couple then decided that they will seek professional help. During their marriage therapy session, both parties, the wife as well as the husband, was then asked to write down what their expectations are. What the wife expected of the husband and herself, what the husband expected of the wife and himself. So they wrote it down, independent of each other. So no party was allowed to see what the other one was writing. The wife wrote down that she expected the husband to help cook because he ate just as much or maybe more than she did. She expected the husband to do the dishes because he was using the dishes just as she was. She expected the husband to help clean the house because he was using the house just as everyone else. For herself, she expected some time out. She expected some alone time. She expected to be able to just enjoy a moment of her own without having to labor behind the family. The husband wrote down that he expected to provide for the family, which he was doing. He was expected to protect the family, which he said he was doing. He expected to be a faithful husband, which he was. And he expected to be a good father, which he believed himself to be. What he expected of himself was that he will be honest, he will be faithful, and he will set a good example for his wife and his children. So one may then ask, well, what exactly is the problem? The therapist then brought both parties together and compared the notes. The therapist asked the wife, you have these expectations, but did you tell your husband what those expectations are? So she said no, because he should know. The husband said he had no idea what the wife expected because it was her own personal law of expectation. The wife then understood what the husband was trying to say. It was his personal law of expectation. They were then able to work out what is best for the family by knowing what each other's expectations were. Many a times while we live, we have certain expectations. It might be fair, or it may not be so fair. But what is unfair is when we impose our personal laws of expectation upon someone else, hoping that they act in a particular way, hoping that they do something in a particular way or something for us. And when they don't, we plunge ourselves into disappointment, into grief, or into anger. It is not fair to ourselves, and it is not fair to the other person when we allow ourselves to impose something upon them without saying what our expectations are, getting their perspective on it, and ensuring that there is a balance of fairness for us and everyone else involved. It is true, we would all have expectations somewhere, somehow. It is natural in our human nature. But we must also understand how we go about creating and executing our personal laws of expectation. There are a few things that we must ask ourselves. Are the laws that we are creating fair to everyone that is involved? Is it in the best interest of everyone that is involved? We may think that it is because we have created it in our own minds. But unless that is properly communicated to our party, to the next person, then it may not necessarily be what we thought. Open communication is critical in any relationship, that each person knows exactly what is expected of them, whether it is our own personal laws of expectation or just general rules of relationships. This is not unique to only marriage or romantic relationships. This can be applied in almost any aspect of our life, including colleagues at work, or friends, or even extended family members. Another critical point in the law of expectation is to ensure that there is honesty in what we expect. There is no need for manipulation, as Kaike did. She manipulated King Dasrat. She threatened King Dasrat to act in a particular way. As we look at the law of expectation, it is unbecoming of any one of us to force, to impose, to manipulate, or to threaten anyone to behave in a particular manner just for our own benefit, just to please our own sake. We must not be like that. In the laws of expectation, we are to ensure that there is always the element of support and care for each other and towards ourselves. In the law of expectation, it doesn't mean that we stifle our own desires. It does not mean that we stifle the things that we want or the things that we wish. It certainly does not mean that we give up on our own hopes and aspirations. What it means is that as we care for ourselves, we care for those around. And there is no imposition that makes someone else uncomfortable or unhappy in the process. It is important for us to understand that no man is an island, as we say in the Caribbean. It means that we are all together. Relationships work best when it is a two-way flow. Let us then reflect on ourselves, our lives, the nature of our expectations, to ensure that we bring out the best in ourselves and the best in others. And together, we build a better home, a better workplace, a better school system, a better society, a better country for one and all. It is my pleasure, as always, bringing these messages to you. Thank you for joining me on Journey of Enlightenment, and I look forward to having our conversation again in our next episode. Thank you.